Hey guys, today is January 14th and it's about 10 a.m. and I am in where I had my first experience with the Sasquatch, the forest people. Um, I haven't really had enough time in here yet to relive it, so I'm going to hand the phone over to Chuck.
Hi, everybody.
Wayne, taking it easy. Right here. All right.
We have a terrible track record with hitting the wrong buttons and shutting this off, so we'll see if we can get it right then this time.
1982 time frame. Was in here with the Boy Scouts. There was two scout leaders and five of us scouts, four other than me. And we got in here, it was night. We started hiking at about 9 o'clock at night, so it was about an hour to get in here, 45 minutes, something like that. So it was almost 10 o'clock at night when we got in here. And of course, over 40 years, a lot has changed. There's a lot of growth in here that wasn't in here. If you want to swing it over this way, Chip. Off over here, you see all this deadfall on the ground and the manzanita kind of right here in the background. Right about where the manzanita and the other side of the deadfall is where the scout leaders had laid down for the night and went to sleep. This tree was not here, and how my memory told me is I was leaning against two pine trees that were growing together at the base. It's a big, huge alligator juniper. But, yeah, so I would have been sitting right here. Our campfire would have been right about here. And the other four scouts would have been around like this. And as I was sitting against this tree, we could hear the rock flying through the air, the sound of the wind making. But it hit right on the other side of this tree. I'm curious. I can't imagine after 40 years it would still be there. It hit right down here. And no, just reliving this on spot. Wow. But yeah, our stack of firewood was right here. And I remember I jumped up and I grabbed it all and threw it on the fire as we're yelling at the scout leaders to get up. And they sit up in their sleeping bags, and you know, we're screaming at them that a big rock just got thrown at us. And you know, and they're kind of scratching their head and they're like, oh, that's probably just elk or deer or critters you're hearing. And they're like, no, man, it was a huge rock. And we talked for a minute or two, and they said, go to bed, boys. We're tired. We're going back to sleep. So they laid down, and now we're standing around the fire because we you know, wild animals and what have you don't like, you know, being around fires. So we're standing around this fire, and it's starting to go down. And I think that my backpack was leaning against that tree, and I was leaning against my backpack when I was sitting there. But anyway, the fire's going down, and so now we haven't heard anything for a little bit, and so I'm sitting there against my backpack. We're back to talking, and then the other side of this drainage right here and how my memory served me was that drainage was higher altitude than where we were. But he come walking, here, I'll stand over here. He come walking from this direction, and it was heavy bipedal steps back over here as it started. I think it might have got about to where this pile of rock is over here. I think right about in there is where he'd stopped, because now we're screaming and hollering again at the scout leaders. And they sit up and they're like, what is it now? They're like, we hear big heavy footsteps over here. It might be a cow, it might be an elk, could be critters. Just go to sleep, guys, it's late. Yeah, like, there's no way we're going to sleep. There's something out there. The monster is out there. And they're starting to get a little aggravated, but they laid down and went back to sleep. And we had scraped all the pine needles and everything we could up from the ground right here and threw it on the fire and started blowing when we heard him coming down the hill again. And he was coming down the side of the drainage this time. And, you know, when we put all the pine needles on, it extinguished the fire. So we started blowing on it as we're yelling at the scout leaders, and they sit up and they're getting aggravated with us. And, you know, we're trying to see what's over there with our little piece of crap flashlights we had back in the 80s. Couldn't see anything. And so the fire went back up. And I'm trying to remember this. They laid back down and the fire was up pretty good. And it had to have backed off when they got up, because once the fire started to die down to just embers again, we could hear the big heavy steps coming back down. And none of us wanted to move. We were as close to the fire ring as we could be at this point. And yeah, now it makes sense to me that that's as deep as it is, because I remember it sounded like he was coming up this side of the drainage, the footsteps. And I kind of came out a little farther, grabbed more pine needles, threw it on, it went up. It goes running up the side of the hill. And the scout leaders, you know, we finally got them up again. We're screaming at them. And they actually got out of, or no, they hadn't got out of their sleeping bags yet. They're sitting up in their sleeping bags. And it was off up over here that we heard the tree get snapped. And that's when they went, oh shit, and jumped up. And the one scout leader grabs his .44 and goof, discharges a shot in the air. And it took off that way through the trees. And I mean, running to beat all hell is what it sounded like. An elephant going through there. And it got, I don't know how far away. You know, maybe, I don't know. It's just, he was a little ways away and let out this, and there was no going to sleep that night after that. But, you know, scout leaders stayed up with us. We kept the fire going all night. Tried to say, let's take turns sleeping, and the rest of us just, you know, one group sleeps, one group keeps the fire going. We might have done that. I don't know for sure. It just doesn't seem like I slept at all that night. Wow. Son of a bitch. What? I tell you guys. Did you guys just hear a snap?
Oh, might have been me getting up.
No, from off over there.
No, I did not.
Sounded like a snap or maybe a light knock. Are you guys here? What?
They're here, Kevin. I got
yeah.
I got tingled a little while ago.
No, I know they're here. I'm just trying, like, to see if I can get them to respond. Folks, this is what I talked about when I'm not sure about them banging sticks against trees. But anyway, I lost what I was saying. Well, we'd hiked out shortly after morning. The scout leaders, they wanted to make their breakfast, and we went down the trail about 3/4 of a mile. There's kind of a meadow back that way, and a pretty cool canyon, and then we hiked out. We just got the hell out of here. But the scout leaders had told us, he said, don't ever talk about this again. I'm like, whatever? There's not a chance in hell I'm going to shut up about this. Well, this is just, I mean, it looks a little different, but everything is right. And it's just, heck of a memory to relive on spot, that's for sure. Huh. All right, guys. Well, that's going to be it for this one. I'll go ahead and
if anybody like Kevin's shirt, he'll put a link in the description below on where those are available. They're available from the Rim Country Museum in Payson, Arizona.
There's nothing on the back.
Nothing on the back.
Of this one? Okay.
So anyway, I'll give this back to Kevin.
All right, guys.
Nice job. I would have turned it off 3 or 4 times.
I'm just going to pan the area real quick before I sign out. Oh my goodness. Ah.
There's one.
2 old guys.
All right, everybody. As always, love you. Peace out.